Today guys, I'm going to give you a basic rundown of the new trigger device in Fortnite Creative and how you can use it to create teleports in Fortnite. Alright guys, let's get started with the basics. Here we have the new trigger device and I have this basically just set to channel 1, okay? And then what we have here is a channel 2 trigger which transmits on channel 2 when that's activated. And then we have a bunch of different devices and objects which can be activated and deactivated whenever we press one of these triggers. So let's go ahead and just start the game. Alright guys, so when I hit trigger 1 over here, it's going to actually turn on a couple of these things. So as you can see, when we run over trigger 1, it activated this exploding barrel and it exploded. It then also made this visible, and it also pressed play on this sequencer. And if we hit trigger 2, it should turn a lot of these things off. So as you can see, it's turned off this sign, so now it doesn't say hello anymore. It's also turned off this kill volume, and I can now walk through this barrier. Once again, if I run over channel 1, it's going to turn all of this stuff back on. So as you can see, the sign now says hello again. If I walk into this kill volume, it will damage me, and I can't walk into this barrier zone. So this whole setup is very simple to understand. We basically have a switch, in this case a trigger, which tells things on channel 1 to turn on effectively. So we have this trigger which is set to transmit on trigger 1. And if we go over here, this explosive device, right at the bottom, we have it so that we can say for it to explode when receiving from, and we have it to explode when channel 1 is activated. Now we can activate channel 1 by either walking over it like we've been doing, or you can use this setting here, triggered by damage, so that when you shoot or update or swing your pickaxe at this trigger device, it will also trigger this barrel. To make the text turn on and off, we have the same two settings at the bottom. Set text visible when receiving from channel 1. So when we run over channel 1, we're basically making the text visible and we can see hello on the sign. And then right at the bottom, we have the text hidden when we run over channel 2. So like I did here, we have an on switch on channel 1, and on channel 2 here, we have the off switch. Pretty simple to understand, and that's how we also turn on and off this damage volume, which can be super useful in parkour, death runs, or just making general traps. The same with this new barrier device. This sequencer device also works in the same way. We can have it start the sequence when receiving from channel 1, and we can also stop the sequence when receiving from channel 2. So we can effectively pause this in mid-air, or midway through the sequence if we have this set to an on-off switch. This is basically just what you need to know. A basic rundown of how to link triggers to devices and stuff like that. So now I'm going to show you how I created the substation teleporter, and how I also created this gate where you have to ring the bell to open it. So first of all, what you're going to need to know is how to use this trigger and the barrier device. So very simply, all we're going to do is we're going to build up one tile from the ground, and then we're going to place a little flat floor on top. What we're going to do next is we're going to place our barrier underneath, just like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the barrier width to 5, the barrier depth to 5, and the height to 2. We're also going to set this to become enabled when receiving from channel 1, okay? We're also going to extend this top floor out by 1, so it's 2 tiles long. And we're going to take our channel 1 receiver, and we're going to place it in the middle like this, okay? The most important thing to do on here, which I just forgot to do, is change this enabled to disabled. That means that by default, this barrier is actually off when you start the game. And then when we run over this trigger, it actually turns this barrier back on. So something very interesting happens when you're inside a barrier and the barrier turns on. Your character will find the shortest route to become outside this barrier, and what it does is it moves you outside this barrier instantaneously. Okay, so as soon as we run over this and turn this on, it's going to try and move my player instantly to the nearest side that's outside this barrier. So the nearest side that's outside this barrier right now is directly in front of me. So basically, if we start this game, what's going to happen is I'm going to teleport half a block. Let's just make that one wider so that I can catch myself. Alright guys, so basically if I run over this trigger here, we're going to turn on this barrier which is underneath. You can't actually see it, but it is there. So if I run over this trigger, it's going to turn the barrier on, and my character is going to find the shortest side so it's no longer in this barrier zone, and that's going to cause me to teleport half a tile. So as you can see, we teleported to this block. It looks like a small hitch, but when you make this a lot bigger and do it on a bigger scale, what you can do is make it look like you're actually teleporting a long distance. So the simplest way of making this entire teleporter work over longer distances is to make the barrier bigger. So if we make the barrier bigger by using barrier width 7, we can make this barrier height 4. So now you can see that this is a lot bigger. We have to scale up the effective height and width of this, because if we made this now 4 wide and didn't change change the height of this, the shortest distance from here would then be directly up. So instead of going forward, we'd actually move up and out of the barrier and teleport upwards. So to make this work, we're going to place this in the middle of tile 3, and we should teleport 2 tiles away. So again, the smaller version, 5, 5, and 2. This one will teleport you 1 tile in front, just this tile. This one here, 7, 7, and 4, will teleport you 2 tiles, 1 and 2. So if we go ahead and try that. Alright guys, the same thing as last time, we're just going to turn on this barrier when we run over channel 1. And as you can see, we basically skipped forward 2 tiles, and we've made a teleporter that works over 2 tiles. Okay, so to scale up this system, basically you're just going to need to keep following the same rule, which is to make the width and depth 3 larger than the height. That should make sure that basically whenever you've got your trigger, the shortest side to get out of this barrier when it becomes enabled is always going forwards. If we move this trigger to go backwards slightly, so it's on this side, then what will happen is when you run over this, you'll actually get teleported backwards. And the same with if you want to go left or if you want to go right. It's always looking for the shortest side. Alright guys, so basically now that we've mastered the ability to go forwards, backwards, left or right, it's time to figure out how to go up. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to set this barrier here, we're going to set this to 4, 4, and 2. So once we place the barrier, we're going to build up 1 higher, creating a 1 tile difference between the barrier and the floor of the level. And then we're going to place our transmitter on top of this tile. So when we walk onto that transmitter, it's basically going to turn on this barrier, and we're going to get teleported up 1 tile. So like we did here, where we're moving forwards, backwards, left or right 1 tile, we're going to actually now just move straight up 1 tile. Alright guys, so when I step onto this trigger, we're going to turn on this barrier, and we're going to get teleported up into the sky 1 tile. So as you can see, we're now hovering in the sky 1 tile above the ground, and our teleportation straight up 1 tile has worked. Now what we can do is we can combine the ability to go forward with the ability to go up. So to do this, we're going to create the simple layout that we did before to teleport forward 1 tile. And we're going to place our vertical barrier underneath the last tile. When we're making the vertical teleporter, it's important to increase the channel to channel 2. We don't want to trigger both of these barriers at the exact same time, we want to actually sequence them. So I'm going to grab my trigger 1, which we're going to place here. and we're going to copy this, and we're going to make this trigger over here a trigger 2. So guys, basically when we walk forward onto this one, we're going to get teleported forward 1 tile and land straight on this trigger 2, which will then ping us up into the sky 1 tile. So we'll end basically 1 tile to the right and 1 tile up from where we started. So when we run over this first trigger, it's going to make us ping forward 1, and then we're going to land on the second one, and we're going to go straight into the sky. So as you can see, we're now exactly 1 tile further forward and 1 tile up from where we started. So that's basically how you want to chain together 2 different ones, a vertical teleporter like this one and a horizontal teleporter like that one. So very simply, that's how you create a teleporter in Fortnite. That's how you get it to go across 1 tile and up 1 tile. If you want to scale this up, basically I've got a scaled up version over here, which actually teleports you forward 4 tiles and then up 4 tiles, but it uses the exact same layout as this one. All we've done is we just kept scaling it up. Like over here, this one's a 2 tile one at 7, 7 and 4. All you want to do is keep scaling up the size of the barrier. So for a 4 tile teleport, I'm using 12, 12 and 8. I found out that kind of works the best. So basically we have the same thing going on in here. This is a channel 1 trigger, which is basically turning on this barrier down here. It then pushes you forward 4 tiles, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 tiles. You then land on a channel 2 trigger, which then activates our like vertical barriers, and then that pushes you up into here, which then triggers a channel 3 trigger, which then pulls you in over here. And on the other side of this, we have a channel 4 trigger. So basically the point of this channel 4 trigger is to actually turn off all of these barriers that we have left turned on here. If we didn't turn these back off, when you try to run back down here, you just keep hitting this invisible wall. So like in the beginning, when I explained that we had the on and the off switch, basically what we're having over there is we have this setting right at the bottom, disable when receiving from. We have that set to channel 4 so that when we get to the end of the teleporter, we actually turn off all of these invisible barriers together, which means that we're able to actually walk back down to the start and then go again. Alright guys, so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to walk through this teleporter here, and we're going to come out at the top over there. So as you can see, you're free to run around completely on both sides. There's no tricky business going on. And what we're going to do is we're going to run straight forward. We're going to hit trigger 1. That's going to push us forward onto trigger 2. And then that's going to push us up into trigger 3, which will then push us forwards over into the second portal, as if we're actually coming out of the second portal. And then we're going to run over trigger 4, which will then reset all of the barriers in the level and allow us to run back down to the start of the level and go again. So as you can see, that all happens pretty much instantly. The effect is really good, and you can barely tell that it actually did those 3 things. It does all of this instantaneously, and as you can see, I'm free to run back down here. All the barriers have been disabled and reset, ready to go again. So if we do that again, run through this portal, and we're back on the other side. So as you can see, it looks really smooth when you put it into a level with loads of decoration. And that's basically the exact same thing that's going on with these small little transmitters, sequencer, teleporters over there. So as you can see, here's the trigger 1 again. It turns on this first barrier, which pushes us forward to here, which means that we land on channel 2, which then pushes us up all the way to here, level with this one. This one's half a tile extra high so that we can actually just walk through it with our main body, which then activates channel 3, which kind of does like a reverse pull. So you know how I was saying earlier, if we move this trigger back to here, it would then be closer to this edge, which would then pull us in effectively and cause us to teleport backwards. Basically, I'm doing the same thing here. I can't put like a barrier or something floating in the sky because it'd look weird, but I do have this cliff. So what I've done is I've basically done this backwards. Instead of this barrier actually pushing you forwards onto the cliff, it's actually pulling you into the cliff, because it's actually, this tile is like closer to this edge here. And once you activate trigger 3, you get pulled into this level with this, and then you land sort of in here and then run straight forward over trigger 4, instantly resetting, turning all of this barrier mess back to off, and then we're able to come back down and do the whole thing again. I do have an extra transmitter thing going back to the very start with the exploding barrel, the ability to actually trigger an exploding barrel using a transmitter. So basically for this, I have a small little scenario when you use the teleporter that you need to ring the bell to open the gate. So you come over here, you ring the bell, and what we're doing is we're actually just sending out a signal on channel 5. So we get behind here and we have a small little barrel which is set to activate when it receives from channel 5. Now a bell would be a bit weird if it didn't make any noise, so what we've actually gone ahead and done is underneath the map we've also placed a small half sequencer which is set to play when receiving from channel 5, and it plays a small little chime like that. Alright guys, so now that we're at the top, we're basically got to ring the bell to open the gate. So when we step over this transmitter, we're going to actually play the sequencer underneath to make this sound, and I'm going to explode the barrel over here, which will lower the gate and allow us to enter the city. So as you just heard, the bell made the sound and the barrier has now disappeared and we're free to walk on into the city. And that's basically it guys. That's just about as much as I know about the trigger device right now. I've just got back from LA and E3 and the summer block party and all that, so I'm still relatively new to all of this stuff, which has been out for a couple weeks. I think this is pretty much most of the stuff you can do with it. Basically, like I say, just turning on different devices that we have available and then turning them back off. The biggest thing that people seem to like to do with it is actually turning on these invisible barriers to create some sort of teleporting effect, and then being able to combine them so that you can go forward and then up, and then again sort of just using a combo of turning on and off devices and this new teleporting mechanic in your levels to create, I don't know, like story modes, anything. Like you could do pretty much anything with this new trigger device. It's a really great addition by Epic Games, and I'm excited to see what you guys can do with it. If you enjoyed this video today guys, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.